The Valaxian survey ship emerged from fold space with the characteristic shimmer of displaced reality, its crystalline hull refracting starlight in impossible patterns. Admiral Kextel stood on the command deck, his iridescent scales rippling with barely contained disdain as he studied the third planet of this unremarkable yellow star. Another primitive world, he muttered, multiple eyes blinking in sequence, hardly worth the fuel spent reaching it. But protocol demanded investigation. The Valaxian Empire had detected unusual energy signatures from this sector, and even primitive species could occasionally prove useful as labor forces or colonial subjects. The ship's sensors painted a detailed picture of Earth's orbital space. Crude satellites cluttered low orbit, while a handful of primitive space stations crawled along their predictable paths. What caught Kextel's attention, however, was the small collection of vessels that could charitably be called warships. "Are those their defensive fleet?" First Officer Miratel asked, her translation crystals struggling to convey her amusement. "They appear to be using chemical propulsion." Kextel's facial ridges lifted in what passed for a smile among his kind. How quaint. They're still burning refined hydrocarbons to move through space. The bridge crew shared knowing looks. They had seen countless species at this stage of development. The awkward adolescence between planetary civilization and true spacefaring capability. Such species typically fell into line, quickly once shown their place in the galaxy's hierarchy. Deep within the United Earth Defense Command bunker beneath the Himalayas, General Sarah Chen watched the alien vessel's arrival on screens that shouldn't have been able to detect it. She maintained a carefully neutral expression, though inside, her heart raced. First contact was happening exactly as their intelligence had predicted. "They're scanning us," reported Captain James Rodriguez, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. "Their technology is exactly what we expected." Chen nodded slowly. "And our countermeasures?" "Operating perfectly, ma'am. They're seeing exactly what we want them to see." The general allowed herself a small smile. "Then let's proceed with Operation Wooden Horse. Signal the diplomatic corps. It's time to play our part." Back on the Valaxian vessel, Kextel received the human's transmission. A crude radio signal carrying a basic first contact package. Mathematical sequences, simple pictograms, and a request for peaceful communication. "How predictable," he said, mandibles clicking. "They follow the same pattern as all young species, eager to join the galactic community, desperate to prove their worth." "Shall we respond with the standard subjugation protocol?" Miratel asked. "No," Kextel replied, surprising his bridge crew. "I want to see these creatures face to face. Let them believe they're being granted a great honor. It will make their eventual conquest all the sweeter." The diplomatic meeting was arranged within Earth's solar system, aboard what the humans called their greatest achievement, the International Space Station Alpha. To Kextel, the structure was barely more sophisticated than a child's construction toy. The human delegation arrived in one of their chemical rockets, a process that took hours and required multiple course corrections. The Valaxians watched with poorly concealed contempt as the humans struggled with their airlocks and environmental systems. Ambassador Rebecca Morrison led the Earth delegation, her dark skin contrasting sharply with her formal white uniform. She smiled warmly at the towering aliens, showing no sign of fear or intimidation. "Welcome to Earth space," she said, extending her hands in what their xenologists had assured her was a neutral greeting gesture. "We are honored to make your acquaintance." Kextel's translator crystal rendered her words into the musical tones of High Valaxian. "The honor," he replied, lying smoothly, "is mutual. We have watched your species with great interest." The meeting proceeded according to standard first contact protocols. The humans shared their history, their achievements, their hopes for the future. They asked questions about the galaxy, about the Valaxian Empire, about potential trade and cultural exchange. To Kextel, it was almost boring in its predictability, until Morrison said something that made his scales bristle. "Of course," she added casually, We would expect any relationship between our peoples to be one of equals. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Kextal's outer membrane shifted colors rapidly, a sign of agitation that his diplomatic training couldn't quite suppress. Equals? He asked, his translator crystal struggling to convey the concept. Perhaps you misunderstand your position. The Valaxian Empire does not treat with equals. We accept willing subjects or we create unwilling ones. Morrison's smile didn't waver, but her eyes hardened. That would be unfortunate. We had hoped for friendship, but humanity has never responded well to threats. Threat? Kextal laughed, the sound like breaking glass. This is simply reality. Look at yourselves. Your technology is primitive. Your ships are toys. Your weapons would barely scratch our hull paint. Accept your place in the natural order, and your transition into the Empire will be relatively painless. The human delegation exchanged glances that Kextal couldn't interpret. Morrison stood, still smiling that infuriating smile. I believe this meeting is concluded, she said. You'll have humanity's formal response within one standard solar day. As the humans departed in their crude vessel, Kextal turned to Mira telephone. Begin military preparations. These humans need to be taught their place. Back in the Himalayan bunker, General Chen received Morrison's report with grim satisfaction. So they're exactly as arrogant as we predicted. More so, Morrison's hologram replied. They didn't even try to hide their contempt. They're completely convinced of their superiority. Chen nodded, her expression hardening. Then everything is proceeding according to plan. Initiate Phase 2. Let's show these Valaxians why humanity has survived everything Earth could throw at us. In high orbit, hidden from both human and Valaxian sensors, thousands of sophisticated weapon platforms silently adjusted their positions. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades, ever since they'd detected the first signs of approaching alien civilizations. The Valaxians would learn, as so many of humanity's enemies had learned before, that appearances could be deceiving, and that humans were very, very good at playing the long game. Deep within Cheyenne Mountain, Dr. Elena Santos watched holographic projections dance through the air, each one representing a piece of humanity's greatest deception. She'd spent 15 years helping develop the technology that would save Earth, all while making sure none of it would be detected until the perfect moment. Ghost Fleet status, she asked, her voice carrying the weight of countless sleepless nights. All systems nominal, reported Dr. Marcus Wong, her longtime colleague. The quantum camouflage is holding perfectly. Even our own conventional sensors can't detect them. The Ghost Fleet was humanity's masterpiece. Vessels that didn't just hide from sensors, but existed in a state of quantum uncertainty. They were there and not there, a feat of engineering that had required rewriting the laws of physics as humanity understood them. And the Valaxians suspect nothing? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. Marcus smiled. They're still scanning what they think is our entire orbital defense network, outdated satellites and chemical rockets. The decoys are performing exactly as designed. In high orbit, the Valaxian fleet had grown to impressive numbers. 30 capital ships, each one capable of reducing a continent to ash, hung in space like crystalline predators. Admiral Kextal had called for overwhelming force. No chances would be taken with these primitives, regardless of how weak they appeared. Their response deadline has passed, Miratel reported, her scales shimmering with anticipation. They've made no attempts to contact us. Kextal's facial ridges contracted in what passed for a frown. Something about this situation felt wrong. The humans' behavior didn't match their psychological profiles. Most species, when confronted with the Empire's might, either submitted immediately or launched desperate futile attacks. The humans had done neither. They simply waited. Launch a probe toward their lunar base, he ordered. Let's see how they react to a simple provocation. The probe, a crystalline dart of advanced technology, streaked toward Earth's moon. On screens throughout the Valaxian fleet, officers watched eagerly for signs of panic or resistance. Instead, the primitive human installation on the lunar surface simply powered down, its lights winking out one by one. "They're abandoning their base?" Miratel asked, incredulous, without even attempting to defend it. Kextel's unease grew. In his centuries of military service, he'd never seen a species simply withdraw. It went against every basic survival instinct. In the Himalayan bunker, General Chen watched the Valaxian probes approach with satisfaction. "Right on schedule," she muttered. "They're following the profile exactly." The lunar base had never been more than an elaborate prop, a collection of hollow structures and false energy signatures designed to draw attention. Its evacuation was merely the next step in humanity's carefully choreographed dance. "Ghost Fleet Squadrons report ready," Captain Rodriguez announced. "Quantum positioning is locked. We can transition them to normal space the moment you give the order." Chen shook her head. "Not yet. Let the Valaxians commit themselves fully. Let them think they understand us." Throughout Earth's solar system, humanity's true forces lay in wait. The Ghost Fleet wasn't just ships. It was an entire parallel military infrastructure existing just slightly out of phase with normal spacetime. Quantum batteries stored enough energy to power small stars, while weapons that bent gravity itself waited silently for their targets. Dr. Santos moved through her lab, checking readings that would have made most physicists question their sanity. The quantum camouflage technology had been inspired by Earth's own cephalopods, creatures that could change not just their color, but their texture and shape. Humanity had taken that concept and extended it to fundamental forces themselves. "We're detecting increased activity in the Valaxian fleet," Marcus reported. "They're moving into attack formation." Elena nodded grimly. "They're probably frustrated by our lack of response. Beings that evolved as apex predators hate being ignored." The Valaxians had indeed evolved from ambush predators. Their crystalline bodies adapted to blend with mineral formations while they waited for prey. That evolutionary history had shaped their psychology. They expected prey to either flee or fight. The humans' passive response violated everything they understood about proper prey behavior. Aboard his flagship, Kextel finally lost patience. "Begin the attack sequence," he ordered. "Target their major population centers. Let's see how calm they remain when their cities start burning." The Valaxian fleet moved with precision, their formations perfect, their targeting solutions calculated to 5 decimal places. They were the galaxy's ultimate predators, about to remind another species of its proper place in the order of things. But in the quantum spaces between moments, humanity's true fleet waited. Ships that could manipulate gravity itself, weapons that could redirect the energy of stars, defense systems that operated on principles the Valaxians couldn't even detect, let alone understand. "They're launching their first wave," Rodriguez reported, his voice steady despite the stakes. General Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Excellent. Send word to all Ghost Fleet commanders. Prepare to execute Operation Lazarus. Let's show these aliens why humanity learned to play dead." The Valaxian attack was moments away from beginning, their weapons charged, their crews confident in their absolute superiority. They had no way of knowing that their carefully planned assault was about to encounter something unprecedented in their military history, an enemy that had completely transcended their understanding of what was possible. "The trap is almost ready," Elena whispered, watching the quantum probability fields fluctuate. Years of preparation, decades of technological development, all leading to this moment. Let them come. The Valaxians were about to learn why humans had survived countless extinction-level events on their homeworld, why they had thrived in every environment, adapted to every challenge, overcome every obstacle. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their weapons or their technology. It was in their ability to think beyond the obvious, to see possibilities where others saw limitations, and to turn their very weaknesses into strengths. The stage was set. The players were in position, and humanity's greatest performance was about to begin. The first Valaxian energy beams lanced through Earth's atmosphere, aimed at what their targeting computers identified as critical military installations. Admiral Kextall watched with satisfaction as the weapons, capable of vaporizing mountains, streaked toward their targets. But something impossible happened. The beams struck nothing. Where their intelligence showed hardened bunkers and command centers, they found empty fields and abandoned warehouses. Every single target was a phantom. Targeting malfunction, Miratel suggested, her scales flickering with uncertainty. Impossible, Kextall snarled. Check the secondary targets. Again, the Valaxian weapons found nothing of value. Empty buildings, abandoned bases, defensive installations that were little more than hollow shells. In the Himalayan command center, General Chen watched the Valaxians' confusion with grim satisfaction. They're starting to realize something's wrong. Signal all Ghost Fleet commanders. Execute Operation Lazarus. Throughout the solar system, space itself seemed to hiccup. Areas that had registered as empty vacuums suddenly blossomed with energy signatures. Ships appeared where none had existed before, emerging from their quantum camouflage like predators shedding their camouflage. But these weren't the primitive vessels the Valaxians had observed. These ships were sleek, angular, and absolutely lethal. Their hulls were covered in patterns that seemed to hurt the eye if viewed directly. Active gravity manipulation fields that could bend space itself. Multiple contacts. A Valaxian sensor operator screamed. They're everywhere. Kextall's outer membrane paled as he watched the tactical display. Hundreds of human vessels had appeared, surrounding his fleet in a three-dimensional web of overlapping fields of fire. But worse than their numbers was their obvious technological sophistication. Impossible, he whispered. Their ships, they're more advanced than ours. In her laboratory, Dr. Santos allowed herself a moment of pride as she watched the quantum probability field stabilize. The Ghost Fleet's transition to normal space had been perfect, each ship appearing exactly where it needed to be. Begin broadcast, she ordered. Throughout the Valaxian fleet, communication systems suddenly activated without command. A human voice, General Chen's, echoed through every ship. Valaxian forces, this is Earth Defense Command. You have entered restricted space and demonstrated hostile intent. You will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded, or we will demonstrate exactly why humanity has survived everything our world has thrown at us. Kextall's response was predictable. Open fire. All ships, maximum spread. The Valaxian fleet erupted with energy beams and plasma torpedoes, their crystalline hulls glowing with power as they unleashed their full arsenal. But the human ships moved in ways that shouldn't have been possible. They didn't dodge. They didn't evade. Instead, the space around them seemed to fold, causing the Valaxian weapons to curve away harmlessly or disappear into microscopic artificial gravity wells. Gravity manipulation, Miratel gasped. But that's beyond even our capabilities. All Ghost Fleet vessels, Chen commanded, her voice steady. You are weapons-free. Show them what humanity can do. The human counterattack was beyond anything the Valaxians had ever encountered. Ships that could create localized singularities, weapons that could temporarily accelerate time in a targeted area, causing enemy hulls to age centuries in seconds. Beams that didn't so much damage their targets as simply edit them out of existence. This is impossible. Kextall raged as another of his ships disappeared into what looked like a fold in space itself. They were primitive. We saw their technology. You saw what we wanted you to see. Chen's voice replied, still broadcasting on all frequencies. Humanity learned long ago that the best way to survive was to never show your true strength until it was absolutely necessary. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 10 minutes. The mighty Valaxian fleet found itself not just outgunned but completely outclassed. Their weapons were useless, their defenses meaningless against physics they couldn't even understand. Dr. Santos watched the quantum probability fields fluctuate as another Valaxian ship was caught in a temporal acceleration field, its crystalline hull aging decades in moments before crumbling into space dust. They really thought we'd show them everything we had during first contact, she mused. That we'd reveal our true capabilities to complete strangers. Marcus chuckled. They never studied Earth's evolutionary history, never understood that on our world, the prey that survived wasn't always the strongest. It was the one that looked harmless until it wasn't. In orbit, the remaining Valaxian ships found themselves completely surrounded. The human vessels had herded them into a perfect killbox, their gravity manipulation fields creating a space from which escape was literally impossible. Admiral Kextall. Chen's voice came again, calmer than ever. Your fleet is defeated. Your weapons are useless. You have one last chance to surrender. Kextall stared at his tactical display, watching as another attempt to breach the humans' gravity field failed completely. His mighty fleet, the pride of the Valaxian Empire, had been reduced to trapped prey by a species they had dismissed as primitive. How? He finally asked, his voice breaking. How did you hide all of this? We didn't hide our technology, Chen replied. We hid our understanding. Every primitive-looking ship you saw was real. We just didn't show you how we'd learned to make space itself work for us instead of against us. The message was clear. Humanity hadn't just developed better weapons or stronger shields. They had fundamentally changed their relationship with physics itself. And they had done it all while maintaining a perfect facade of primitive technological development. Signal your surrender, Chen commanded, or we will be forced to demonstrate even more of humanity's capabilities. Looking at the scattered remains of his fleet, at the human ships that seemed to bend reality itself around them, Kextall made the first surrender decision in Valaxian military history. Sometimes, he realized, the most dangerous prey was the one that knew how to play weak until the perfect moment to be strong. News of the Valaxian defeat spread through the galaxy like a shockwave. Species that had lived in fear of the crystalline empire for millennia watched in stunned silence as footage of the battle, carefully edited and released by human intelligence services, played on every communication network. In the Galactic Council's emergency session, representatives from 100 species argued over the implications. Humanity, a species most had dismissed as primitive, had not only defeated the Valaxians, they had revolutionized warfare itself. Ambassador Morrison stood before the council, her white uniform pristine, her expression serene. We come seeking neither conquest nor dominion, she declared, but we will no longer tolerate the presumption of our inferiority. In the shadows of the council chamber, other species intelligence operators frantically analyzed the battle footage. But understanding how humans had achieved their victory proved impossible. The technology involved operated on principles that seemed to violate fundamental laws of physics. Back on Earth, General Chen met with the Joint Chiefs in the real Himalayan Command Center, not the decoy that had been destroyed in the battle. The Valaxians are just the beginning, she said, gesturing to a holographic map of known space. Other empires are already moving to test our capabilities. Let them come, Dr. Santos responded, her hologram flickering slightly. The Ghost Fleet was just our first revelation. They haven't seen what else we've developed. Throughout human space, hidden facilities hummed with power as new technologies were brought online. The quantum camouflage had been impressive, but it was merely the foundation. Humanity had spent decades preparing for not just first contact, but for the inevitable conflicts that would follow. Aboard the captured Valaxian flagship, now renamed the HSS Deception, Admiral Kextall sat in what had once been his command chair. Under the terms of surrender, he served as a cultural advisor to the human fleet. In reality, he was a witness to humanity's continuing evolution. Your ships, he said to Captain Rodriguez, who commanded the vessel now. They're changing. Rodriguez nodded. The human vessels no longer bothered hiding their true nature. Their hulls rippled with patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than space allowed, their drives leaving trails of altered probability in their wake. Evolution never stops, Rodriguez replied, especially not for a species that's learned to engineer it. The first challenge to Earth's new status came from the Krex hegemony, a species of energy beings who had previously dismissed biological life as inherently inferior. Their attack was subtle, attempts to infiltrate human computer systems with consciousness transfers. They found themselves trapped in quantum memory systems that existed in superposition, their energy forms scattered across multiple probability states. The survivors fled, fundamentally changed by exposure to technology they couldn't comprehend. The galaxy's balance of power is shifting, Morrison reported to the Earth Defense Council. Species that once dominated through pure military might are finding their advantages negated. It wasn't just human military technology that reshaped the galaxy. Trade ships equipped with quantum drives and probability anchors revolutionized commerce. Human medical technology, once revealed, proved capable of treating conditions other species had thought permanent. Dr. Santos led the public revelation of each innovation, carefully controlling the flow of information. "We're not just showing them new technology," she explained to her team. "We're teaching them new ways to think about what's possible." The Valaxian Empire, reeling from its defeat, faced internal revolutions as subject species realized their crystalline overlords weren't invincible. Kextal watched his civilization transform from his position aboard the Deception. "You could have destroyed us completely," he said to Rodriguez during one of their conversations. "Why didn't you?" "Because humanity learned long ago that destroying an enemy is easy," Rodriguez replied. "Transforming them into something new, that's the real challenge." The Ghost Fleet, now openly patrolling human space, became a symbol of this new philosophy. Their quantum-shifted hulls and reality-bending weapons served not to threaten, but to remind. They were the visible tip of humanity's technological iceberg, and everyone knew there was far more hidden beneath the surface. In her lab, Dr. Santos and her team continued pushing boundaries. The quantum camouflage technology had opened doors to understanding reality itself, and through those doors, humanity glimpsed possibilities that even their most advanced allies could barely imagine. "We're not just changing the galaxy's political structure," she told Chen during a briefing. "We're changing how species think about existence itself." The general nodded, watching displays of human ships dancing between stars, their movements uninhibited by traditional physics. "And that's the real victory, isn't it? Not defeating the Valaxians, but showing everyone, including ourselves, that the impossible is just something we haven't tried hard enough to achieve yet." Throughout known space, other species began to understand what made humans different. It wasn't their technology, advanced as it was. It wasn't their military prowess or their diplomatic skill. It was their fundamental approach to existence, their refusal to accept limitations, their ability to see possibilities where others saw walls, and their talent for appearing harmless while developing the power to reshape reality itself. The galaxy was changing, and at the heart of that change was a species that had learned its greatest lessons not from triumph, but from billions of years of evolution on a planet that had tried to kill them countless times. 1 year after the Valaxian defeat, the Galactic Council chamber hummed with an energy unlike anything in its ancient history. Representatives from every major species gathered not for war or treaties, but for something unprecedented: a demonstration of humanity's new quantum integration protocol. Ambassador Morrison stood at the center of the chamber, her white uniform now adorned with subtle patterns that seemed to shift when not directly observed. Behind her, a holographic display showed the gathered species something that should have been impossible: a live feed of parallel probability streams. "For too long," she began, "the galaxy has been divided by fear and pride. Species fought over resources that seemed scarce, over territories that seemed limited, over technologies that seemed finite. Today, we show you why such conflicts are unnecessary." In orbit above Earth, the Ghost Fleet had transformed. No longer content with merely bending space, the ships now existed in multiple states simultaneously, their quantum-shifted hulls serving as bridges between different versions of reality itself. Dr. Santos, now director of the Temporal Sciences Division, supervised the final preparations. All probability anchors are stable, she reported. We're ready to begin the demonstration. Throughout known space, quantum receivers activated, gifts from Earth to every species that had accepted their new role in the galaxy. Through these devices, the assembled representatives watched as humanity revealed their ultimate achievement. A Valaxian colony world appeared on their screens, one devastated by centuries of mining and exploitation. As they watched, human ships moved into position around the planet. Reality itself seemed to flutter, and suddenly the world existed in multiple states at once, barren and devastated in one, pristine and restored in another. We've learned to access parallel probability streams, Morrison explained, to draw upon the resources of multiple realities while maintaining the stability of each. Scarcity is no longer an absolute. It's simply a limitation of perspective. Admiral Kextall, watching from his position as advisor to the human fleet, felt his crystalline form vibrate with understanding. "You're not just changing our worlds," he said softly. "You're changing the nature of existence itself." The demonstration continued. Worlds thought dead were restored by drawing upon their pristine versions in other probability streams. Resources thought depleted were renewed by accessing parallel reserves. Even species thought extinct were restored through careful quantum manipulation of their historical timelines. General Chen, now Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces, watched the reactions of the gathered species with careful attention. "They're beginning to understand," she told her staff. "This isn't just about technology. It's about transcending the very limitations that drove us to conflict." But not all species embraced humanity's revelation. The Krex hegemony, still smarting from their earlier defeat, saw the quantum integration technology as a threat to their very existence. They launched a desperate attack, attempting to destroy the probability anchors maintaining the new quantum network. Their weapons, designed to disrupt the fabric of space-time itself, encountered something unexpected. The human defense systems didn't just stop their attack. They integrated it, drawing upon versions of reality where the Krex had chosen peace instead of war. "That's the true power of quantum integration," Dr. Santos explained to the stunned council. "It allows us to access not just different physical states, but different choices, different possibilities, different paths of development." The Krex attack vessels found themselves transformed, their energy beings merged with versions of themselves that had evolved beyond the need for conflict. It was neither destruction or victory in any traditional sense. It was transcendence. "We offer this technology freely," Morrison announced to the council. "Not as a weapon or a tool of dominance, but as a key to unlocking the true potential of all species." Throughout the galaxy, the impact was profound. Species that had warred for millennia found themselves able to access realities where their conflicts had never begun. Dying worlds were restored by drawing upon their thriving parallels. Even the concept of death itself began to shift as consciousness could be preserved across multiple probability streams. The Valaxian Empire, under Kextall's guidance, became one of the first to fully embrace the new paradigm. Their crystalline forms, once symbols of unchanging pride, now shifted through multiple quantum states, each one representing a different possible path of evolution. "Pride's price," Kextall mused, watching his people transform, "was our belief that we had reached the pinnacle of development. Humans showed us that there is no pinnacle, only endless possibility." As the demonstration concluded, Morrison faced the council one final time. "Humanity spent centuries appearing weak while developing strengths others couldn't imagine. We learned to hide our true nature while evolving beyond traditional limitations. But our greatest achievement isn't the technology we've created. It's the understanding that every species, every world, every particle of existence contains infinite potential. We just had to learn how to access it." The galaxy would never be the same. The age of quantum integration had begun, and with it, a new understanding of what was possible. Humanity, once dismissed as primitive, had become not conquerors or destroyers, but guides to a level of existence few had imagined possible. In her lab, Dr. Santos watched the probability streams fluctuate, each one showing a different possible future. "We didn't just change the game," she told Chen. "We changed the nature of reality itself." "And that," Chen replied, watching the quantum-shifted ships dance between stars, "is humanity's true gift to the galaxy. Not the power to destroy or dominate, but the ability to see beyond what is to what could be." The story of humanity's rise from apparent primitives to shapers of reality itself became legend throughout the galaxy. But perhaps the greatest legend was the truth that drove it all. That sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't the ability to destroy or conquer, but the wisdom to appear weak until the moment comes to show your true strength. And in the quantum-shifted spaces between possibilities, humanity continued to evolve, always searching for the next horizon, the next impossible thing to make possible, the next limitation to transcend. The end was just another beginning, and the dance between stars continued.